Good morning, everyone. We are live. I am here with my new friend, Rockin Coach Amy. I know. Hi, Amy. I met
Hi.
Amy on one of Butter Bob's lives, and I had never met her before. Like, I didn't know that she was in our space, or I just hadn't caught her on any other live stream or hadn't seen her channel. And then I was like, oh, this girl is awesome. I want to get her on my channel and have a little chat. So, thanks for hanging out with me for the next hour or so on YouTube and chatting things up with me. I just want to hear a little bit about your story first, if you wouldn't mind
You
sharing, because I want to get to
First
know
of
you.
all, yeah, thank you for having me on, Christy. And Christy and I were talking a little bit before, just a few minutes, and we have so much in common. So this should be really fun. I'm really excited about this. So, my story,
Yeah.
it starts. Well, first of all, I never had a weight problem growing up. I like to start with that because some people have struggled with weight their entire life, right? I'm not one of those people. I was a skinny girl, very tall, like I was like 5'10" in high school. I'm a little shorter now, but they used to call me Olive Oil from Popeye or Sasquatch because I was so tall and thin. And I didn't really start getting weight problems until I started to gain weight through college because, in college, you start eating out, you have a car, you get your own money when you're working and stuff like that. So I put on weight. When I was like a teenager, I weighed like 135, 145, which was very thin. And then, I started to gain like 20 pounds in my 20s. I did always have sinus infections when I was a kid, and I was supposed to have my first surgery when I was a kid. They were supposed to go into my sinuses, and they told my parents the risk, and they're like, "Nope, I'm not doing that." So my parents and I'm actually kind of glad they didn't do that, because I have been through several surgeries, and it's not all it's cracked up to be, right? So moving on, the first the serious health issue that I dealt with in 2005, I met my husband, and not long after this, I got this serious sinus infection where my head hurt, my ear hurt, and it was excruciating. And it never went away. Like the pain in my ear. And if you've ever had like a severe toothache or sinus surgery, the pain from that is just excruciating. And you're like, pull all my teeth out kind of pain, right? Well, that never went away. And it took the doctors forever to figure out what's going on with me. And they kept putting me on antibiotics, and the pain never went away. And they were putting me on Vicodins. I was taking 6 Vicodins a day. I was taking diazepam, Klonopin, temazepam to sleep, baclofen, which was a muscle relaxer, and I was taking this concoction of very strong narcotics. And I mean, I was driving around and functioning with this, right? And they put me on like this. I think it was like 3 or 4,000 milligrams of Lyrica a day, which is uh, it's a nerve pain. And I finally found a surgeon in Detroit who was one of 3 surgeons in the country who would do surgery at that time. And he says, "You have trigeminal neuralgia." And I believe the inflammation from my sinus infection caused this. And probably um, my diet didn't help, right? Because I was eating standard American diet. And he said, "I can fix you." So my first surgery was a brain surgery, and I had that done in 2008. And this is the only time in my life that I suffered from depression and I didn't want to live. Right? I would literally dream every day. I worked at a job that had a bridge down by the river, and literally I would look out my window and look at the bridge, and every day look at that bridge and say, "I just want to go there and jump off the bridge." It's the only time in my life I ever did not want to continue on. I would go to the emergency room for shots of morphine just so I could sleep because I did not sleep for 2 years. And when you don't sleep like that, you go nuts, right? I was mentally crazy and trying to function as a human being. And they treated me like a drug addict. I'll never forget one doctor at the ER said, "Oh, my next door neighbor has this, and he takes the drugs and he's fine." And I'm like, "Well, good for your neighbor, but I'm not fine, right? I'm not fine." So this brain surgeon eventually gave me brain surgery, and it worked, right? It has not returned. So I lost, moving forward, I lost 30 pounds before my diet doing the Atkins diet, right? Well, this wasn't the tainted Atkins diet that we know of with the keto or the Atkins bars, the Atkins treats, the stuff that they totally like messed up Atkins. This was clean Atkins. This was eating meat and then adding in some like vegetables, like clean vegetables, like whole food Atkins. I did, and I lost 30 pounds. Well, then I went on my honeymoon because I got married. And within the 2 weeks we went on a cruise, we were going, I'm like, I'm just going to take a break from Atkins. And I would go to the buffet. We would go to the buffets, which were open 24/7. And at midnight, you could go fill your plate with brownies and cookies and all these treats. And we were loving it. We were sneaking those up to our room. And we were on a 2-week cruise in the Caribbean. And in the 2 weeks, I gained the majority of that. I probably gained 20 to 25 pounds back in 2 weeks. That's how fast you can put weight back on, because the pants that I took with me on the cruise weren't fitting when we got off the cruise. And then it just skyrocketed from there. I was learning how to cook in my marriage, and I'm not blaming my husband for any of this. This was my own doing, but I learned how to cook. I learned, but then I slowly put on probably over 100 pounds, and I skyrocketed up to almost 260, 270 from like I was 175 at my wedding. So, and it didn't take long. In 2011, I was diagnosed with sleep apnea, and my AHA was 70 pounds, or 70, which means I stopped breathing 70 times in an hour. When I went for the sleep apnea test, they woke me up after an hour and said, it's too dangerous for you to continue sleeping. And I'm like, what do you mean? I sleep like this every night. So they woke me up after an hour and put on the sleep apnea machine. I still use that. I think it's better, but I do notice when I sleep, it's not 100%. So I still use my sleep apnea machine just because I feel better when I do use it. And so the next thing that happened to me in 2013, when I was overweight, I woke up one morning and my hip hurt very bad, right? I just woke up out of bed with hip pain. And I'm like, oh, this will go away. It'll go away. It never went away. So I waited about 6 to 8 months, and I went to see a surgeon. And guess what the surgeon recommended? I had a left labral tear repair. So we did surgery on that, and it fixed it. I'm not going to lie. It did fix it. And then in 2016, I took this for granted, right? You would think this would be a wake up call for me to lose some weight, but I didn't lose the weight. I was still 260, 270. And we went in 2016. I'm a singer. We went to Carnegie Hall in New York City. And even when I was overweight, I was a go-getter, right? I always wanted to go and do things. And so we walked 20 miles the first night in New York City because I didn't realize New York City blocks were different than Mishawaka, Indiana blocks. They're like 10 times the size of our blocks. And so me and my husband walked 20 miles the first day in New York City, and I took a step off a curb and I hurt my foot. So when I got back, I had foot surgery, right? Because I went to see a foot surgeon, and guess what the foot surgeon recommended, Christy? Guess what they recommended that I needed? Surgery. Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner.
We have a
And
winner.
what I should have done was I should have gotten inserts, and I should have worked on losing weight, right? Well, the surgeon said I can fix this, blah, blah, blah. And that was one of the worst surgeries ever. Let me tell you, my foot still swells from time to time, even being carnivore, when the weather gets bad or I eat something maybe that I didn't know it had an ingredient in it at a restaurant, my foot still, and that was in 2016. And that's 10 years ago I had that surgery, right? 10 years later. So if anybody is considering foot surgery, it better be like the foot better be falling off, in my opinion. So Then in 2017, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and my blood pressure, I think I was like 35, 36 or something, was 220 over 110. 220 over 110. Actually, I think I was for 39. I was 39 because that was almost 10 years ago when I got diagnosed and I was put on meds. And so I was on that for a while. And then in 2018, and there's a video on my channel about this. I had a terrible fall in my yard walking face first into a spider web. It actually was caught on camera because we had security videos on our home. And I retore the labrum on my left hip. So the same hip surgery that I had, that fall, I retore the labrum. And this at this time, the doctor started putting digital notes in our my chart, right? And I went home and I pulled up my chart, and the doctor put in my chart, we talked extensively about weight loss. And Christy, I lost it. I started bawling. I'm like, the doctor never said anything about me being overweight, right? He never said anything. And I'm like, why did he say I was fat in my chart? And I bawled. I don't know why that resonated with me, but it did. And I'm glad. I'm glad the doctor did that. And actually, he's a great surgeon, and I've recommended a lot of people to him. But the reason why I now know the reason why he put that in my chart, because he has to do that for insurance, right? He has to have all of the things check marks, but he's probably a smart guy, and he's like, I'm not going to talk to a woman about their weight, right? Doctors are human beings, and even doctors don't want to talk to a woman about their weight because they're freaked out about it. So he didn't do that. Um, So I read the note, and the next time I went and saw him, I'm like, look, can you give me 6 months? I really want to lose weight. So I'm like, well, I did this Atkins thing, whatever, 15 years ago, and it worked. So I'm just going to do what I did before. So, Christy, I was eating grilled chicken every day and steamed broccoli. And I was losing about 10 pounds a month. And after about 2 months of this, I wanted to die. I wanted to die. I'm like, I can't do this. I had the keto flu so horribly, and I didn't know about electrolytes. I didn't know I could put fat in my diet. And my sister, Janine, who is an amazing person, she's secretly been ketogenic for 20 years. She started sending me Dr. Berry videos. She started sending me Maria Emmerich recipes. All day I dream about food. And when she sent me taco pie and Marie Emmerich's protein lasagna, I was like, oh, I could have lasagna. I'm Italian. I'm like, I can have lasagna again. Just, we're going to use meat as the noodle. And I still make that recipe when I have people come that are not necessarily carnivore. I make it for Christmas. Taco pie, I still make from time to time. Now it does have cheese in it, so I try to avoid cheese, but it's pretty much carnivore. It's got heavy whipping cream, eggs, and meat, and a little bit of taco seasoning, right? I still make that from time to time, even on carnivore. And it changed my world. And that's how I got introduced to Dr. Berry. So in 2019, I had a left hip labral tear repair, my second surgery. And I was 7 weeks post surgery, and I just got off the crutches, and I was standing at my counter chopping a salad. Now, Dave Mack said, see, plants can kill you, right? I was chopping a salad and I took a step, and I went down to the floor, and my hip popped, and I retore my labrum chopping a salad at the counter. And I went back to my favorite surgeon, and he's like, I'm sorry, Amy, there's nothing I can do for you. And it was worse than it was before. It was worse. But he's like, I got a guy in Chicago. I want you to go see Dr. Shane No at the Rush Medical, a teaching university, right? And he's like, go see him. So I went to see Dr. Shane No in Chicago. Amazing, amazing guy. He is the leading hip surgeon, I believe, in the country. He flies all over, and he teaches the hip surgeons all over the country. He's also the hip surgeon for all of the Chicago, like the Chicago hockey team, the Chicago Blackhawks, a lot of the Chicago sports teams. So amazing guy. And within 5 minutes of talking to him, he's like, I can fix you, right? I'm like, okay, this is the guy for me. And he did. He did. He fixed it, and I was on my way for recovery from that. So I was in physical therapy for a whole year from that into 2019. And I'm going to be careful how I word this because I know we try to be careful when we talk about stuff. Then 2020 hit, and Christy, we all know what happened in 2020.
Yep.
I was I had so much energy. I lost like 60 to 80 pounds. And then 2020 hit, and I was doing great until I didn't. Right. And I got what I call on YouTube an intervention in my arm because I was scared because I was taking care of a 90-year-old with dementia in the nursing home. My 80-year-old parents live next door. I help care for them. And they told us you have to protect your elderly. So I'm one of the people that went and got it. And I'm telling you, I have had the vid 7 times. No problem. The first time was a little more severe. No problem. The intervention did not prevent that. But I have never felt as good as I did before that intervention. And I'm one of the ones that had a severe reaction. It almost landed me in the hospital. I couldn't breathe for 45 days. I had severe body aches. I had like fever symptoms for 45 days. And everybody's like, you got COVID, right? But I didn't have it because I kept getting tested and it was negative. I'm like, no, I'm having a reaction. So after 45 days, my doctor finally saw me because he wouldn't even see me because he's like, you can't come into this office if you have the virus. So I suffered for 45 days and I was scared to go to the emergency room because I thought they would put me on a ventilator. And I told my husband, don't take me to the hospital unless my lips are blue. Then call an ambulance, and only if my lips are blue, take me to the hospital. But I suffered for a month and a half. And the only thing that really fixed me was was steroids. So steroids calmed my inflammation down from that thing, and I got the Pfizer shot. That tanked me, and I never felt good again. And I was getting illnesses every month and a half for 2 years. I got either a cold, I caught RSV, I caught COVID 7 times, and this went on for 2.5 years. I got sick every month. So I was sick all the time. And of course, I didn't feel good. So that happened. And then I never again quite had that energy that I had when I first started keto. In this time, and this will resonate with you, I was also having I was diagnosed with a fibroid cyst in my uterus. So sorry for the guys out there watching, but I was bleeding all the time. Like I bled constantly for 5 months. So I consulted a hysterectomy, and he asked me if I was going to have any babies. And at this time I was like, what, 47, and I had my two grandkids living with me with my stepson. And I'm like, look, even if I wanted to have a baby, there's no vacancy in this home for babies, right? So it just wasn't going to happen. So I had a hysterectomy, a partial hysterectomy. I kept my ovaries.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was going good. Till about a year or so ago, I started to get perimenopausal hot flashes and exhaustion and stuff like that. And then the other thing that I tried in 2021, I was a big fan of Maria and Craig Emmerich, right? And so I was stalled for 2 years. So I tried the protein sparing modified fasting. And I know this is controversial and I'm going to catch a lot of hell for this, but it broke me through a 2-year stall doing protein. And it's not like I was eating that way every day. I would do it 1 to 3 days a week. I got down to 148 pounds. I got up, I hovered around 153 for like 4 years. So I was very happy doing it. And I felt good on the days that I did that. But last summer, something really, really happened. Like the PSMF worked for me until it didn't. Last summer, I had a week. In June, we had terrible storms and trees fell, and it nearly missed my house. right? So that happened. And then the same thing happened to my parents. Another storm hit and they live next door. Some trees fell in their yard and nearly missed both of our houses. My brother had a severe work accident and almost died. He had a work accident and sliced open one of his arteries, and they ambulanced him to the emergency room. And I was close. So I went and sat with him while they fixed him up. Then 2 days later, my mom and dad called and said, I'm so sorry. I know you were just in the emergency room, but dad needs to go to the ER. Can you drive him? And my mom doesn't drive. So I spent another like 8 to 10 hours in the ER, ended up being a kidney stone, right? And that all happened the night before I was traveling to Ohio for a meetup. And when I got home the following week, there were days, Christy, I could not get out of bed. I felt paralyzed. I had such extreme exhaustion that I'm like, okay, keto, PSMF, something is going on. It could be menopause, it could be something else, but I need to try carnivore. I've been listening to carnivore channels for years. And I felt like, oh, that's great, but I don't need to do this because everything's working, right? Until last summer. And that's where I really decided to go carnivore. And I do feel within 2 weeks, the way that I describe it is the energy, it's like walking down a hallway and the energy is moving towards you and the fatigue is moving away from you. It wasn't overnight, but it was like this shift. Now, I'm going to say something else that's probably going to really upset people, but I've gained 25 pounds. And I know this resonates with you because you're another carnivore that really resonated with me in the beginning that said they gained weight on carnivore, and I have not given up. Now that has leveled off. I'm up to about 173, 74 pounds, and I'm not gaining anymore. But, and I do have way more energy. And my menopause symptoms are better. They're not totally gone, but the hot flashes have subsided. And, so that is working. And now this last September, my last surgery, I was diagnosed with an inguinal hernia. So I did have, and I'm sorry, no amount of carnivore is going to fix a hernia. No amount of carnivore is going to fix a hernia. So I did have hernia surgery on October 20th. But you know what? I have forgotten. I went to the doctor and I had forgotten I had surgery. I feel so good. I forgot I had surgery. They saw the scars and they're like, what's this from? I'm like, oh, I think it's from my hysterectomy, in 2021. No, those scars were from the hernia and I had forgotten about it. So, some things that have gotten better on keto and carnivore is my asthma since childhood has much improved. My eczema is gone. My allergies are much better. I still take allergy therapy, but I live with 4 cats and I don't think carnivore is going to cure that. I'm off all my high blood pressure medications. I'm off all of my anxiety meds that I took when I had trigeminal neuralgia. My joint pain and hip pain is better. My sleep apnea is much better. And I truly believe if I knew all of this 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have had to have all of these surgery. I think a lot of this was caused by inflammation. Okay, so in a nutshell, that is like it. Sorry, I wanted to try to keep it shorter because I can tell my story for like 2 hours.
Oh,
But
same.
yeah,
No, that was
so
good. That gives me like, yeah, that gives me kind of like your timeline. And I do find a lot of commonalities. So, we are both 50, right? So we were born at the same time, kind of lived through the low fat 80s, I'm sure.
yep.
Where our stories differ is I have never been overweight, but it was because I was binging and restricting. And although never diagnosed with an eating disorder, probably had one. So we could just call it disordered eating since I never was diagnosed. For sure, I would restrict calories down to as low as I could get them for as long as I could take it. And that was based
Wow.
on the number on the scale. So there was always a number. And if I saw that number, it was time to starve myself for weeks and months on end. And then even when I got down to the weight, like the weight that I thought I would be okay at, I would still look in the mirror and be like, you're still fat. You need to lose more weight. Right. And I did that from my teenage years all the way through 3 years ago when I found keto.
Wow.
And so that was a lot. So you're talking about probably if you had known about keto and carnivore, you wouldn't have had most of those surgeries or maybe even all of those
I bet.
surgeries. I feel the same way. So I think that because I, for however many years that is, from the age of, 14 or 15 to 47, I completely damaged my body. There was no way that any of that was healthy because when I wasn't starving myself, I was binging on highly processed junk food. And that when I went to college, similar to you in some respects, my mom wasn't there anymore. And I went to college at 17. So sweet, I can have ice cream for breakfast, right?
Yep.
I can eat as much
Right?
pizza as I want because my mom's not here to feed me chicken or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I know that I damaged my body doing that, even though if people looking at me from the outside would have said, oh, there's like a skinny blonde girl from Southern California. Like they, because they didn't know all the internal struggles and what I was doing to maintain myself at that low weight. So that's where our stories differ in that my weight never ballooned up, except I will say during my pregnancies, because then I'm like, I could be fat if I want because I'm pregnant. So nobody can say anything.
Right.
And so I did put on way more weight than they recommend for someone to put on in both of my pregnancies, but especially more so in my second pregnancy, but in both of them. Yes.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up like disordered eating and stuff like that because I left this out of my story. But when I was in high school, I played on a state championship volleyball team, right? And they had what was called the 20-minute run club. And I was tall. So I was one of the tallest girls on the team. And like the short girls that were 5'2", they only weighed 100 pounds. So you had to run based on your weight. Well, I weighed like 135. And when I started lifting weights, I got up to 145. So they made the heavy girls, it didn't matter what your height was. So I would have to run for 20 minutes. And anybody who knows me knows I hate running. I am not a runner. I come from a family of runners. My gig was volleyball. I played volleyball. And I hated running. So I'm like, Mom, I need to lose some weight because I don't want to run as long, right, after practice. And so my mom would buy me the Slim Fast shakes, low fat, Slim Fast shakes. Mm-hmm. And she would get them in the cans and they were disgusting. Mm-hmm. And so I would have those for breakfast and lunch. And eventually I couldn't stomach them anymore. So I just stopped eating. And I was on a quest. And so, we're from the 90s, we grew up in the 90s. So we did all the low fat 80s and 90s, the low fat stuff. Yep. And so I did have a little bit of, I never was really anorexic or anything like that. But then when I got my 20s, I'm like, I'm never going to starve again. I'm never going to starve again. And I'm going to eat what I want. And, I got to this point where, and let me show you this photo. If anybody hasn't seen this, I'm just going to share a photo here. You can bring on screen.
Yeah, sure. Let me bring it up.
On the left was in 2017 before I started my journey. On the right was my lowest weight at 148, which is about my high school weight, but I'm about 20 pounds heavier than that now because of carnivore. But when I was on my left, I'm like, I'm not going to starve. I'm just going to go to the gym. And I would work out for 2 hours and I would burn like 2,000 calories on the elliptical and the stair climbing machines. And then I would come home. I'm like, I can eat what I want because I just worked out for 2. And I would eat a 3,000 calorie plate of nachos at 10 o'clock at night. And so I was never losing weight. You cannot outrun a bad diet. So the diet, I think, is the most important thing. So, and I really think, that there is a little bit, even of those of us women who don't consider us having a eating disorder, we have a little bit of disordered eating mentality in there. Cause even now I step on the scale and I'm like, that number's got to say 150. And my new doctor is saying, you need to go on a GLP-1. And I'm like, for 20 pounds? Like, why do I need a GLP-1 for 20 pounds? 20 pounds. So I luckily I do have enough. I don't know, like, I don't know the word. There's enough in this brain that tells me, no, I don't need to do that. Right.
I think that comes with us being 50. Because in my 20s and 30s, I would have said, oh, doctor said I better go ahead and do. Okay. I just would have complied. Right. Yeah. Now I'd be like, no.
And Nah, you know what? It's a mental thing for me that I want to go down to back to 150 pounds. It's a mental thing. And then there's also a mental thing in here saying you are doing great. You don't need to be 150 pounds. You felt like crap at a lower weight. You're feeling better 15 to 20 pounds heavier. And my hot flashes are subsiding. I'm starting to get better sleep. So maybe, it's okay to to eat the higher fat, and maybe that will continue to get better. And also another thing I forgot to mention was this summer I was diagnosed with uh, elevated TSH. So I think the exhaustion I was feeling was a touch of hypothyroidism. Well, guess what has reversed? I have gone back and gotten the full thyroid panel tested again, and my TSH now is back in range. So I think I started to get into that hypothyroidism, you know, element, and that is starting to reverse. And I think that's another reason why I'm feeling better. And, you know, high fat, I believe, is helping with that.
Yeah.
So
So,
there's another thing.
oh, I was just gonna say I'm overdue on my blood work, so this is all going back. But yes, my TSH was very elevated, quite high. And then after going high fat, this was like a couple years ago, and I always thought I was probably hypothyroid, but I didn't really go to the doctor. But
Mhm.
I finally had it checked, and yes, my TSH was quite high. And then adding in the high fat and then adding in some iodine and taking some
Mhm.
beef thyroid supplements. And my last time I had it checked, it was definitely trending down. Like it wasn't quite in the normal range, but it was down quite a bit and like just only a skosh above that normal range. My doctor
Yep.
has ordered blood work and I need to go because it's been like 3 months since she ordered it. So I don't know how I'm doing now, but I can tell you my energy is so much better. But I, like you, when I went carnivore, it wasn't on purpose. Like I started keto to lose that 20 pounds that I gained and lost like 80 million times. I don't know how many. That's hyperbolic, obviously. But definitely going up and down those 20 pounds. And then accidentally went keto accidentally went carnivore because when I was
Mhm.
keto, my plate was like meat and veg. And then it was like I would look at the veg and it didn't appeal to me. So I'm like, man, just
Mhm.
won't eat it. And then all of a sudden, within a week or two, my energy went up, similar to you saying, your energy. I
Yeah.
started sprinting, which I'm not currently doing, but I'm doing some other things. But I'm feeling like I need to get back out there and sprint. Yeah, like I'm feeling motivated again to go do that. But I started sprinting. I started wanting to be around people, which I had gotten so much, almost like a hermit. Like my level of wanting to be around people just kind of went like that,
Mhm.
from my 20s to my late 40s. And I was like, oh, you mean that wasn't normal for me to just want to stay inside all the time and hide? Oh, okay. So things like that happened. And so, yes, the weight I did gain some weight, but here's the but I wasn't obsessing about calories anymore. I wasn't counting anything anymore. My mental health was so much improved. And like you, it did stop after a certain amount of time. So I gained about 20 pounds and then it just kind of stuck there. So I'm currently sitting at 140, which for me, that's like the highest weight I've ever been, except for my pregnancies. So the
Well,
old me would have been like, time to starve, time to, because that was, wow. Like my old number was like, if I hit 130, it was time to starve, right? But it's like I feel so good that and because it did stop, I will say, while it kept going up and up, I was like, it was anxiety inducing for me.
yep.
But it did stop, and it's been stable at that weight now without counting anything, thinking about it very much at all, except when I'm talking about it with you, like right now. But it just kind of stays there, and I don't really have to think about it too much. And so it just feels so good to not have half my brain constantly counting calories and what can I eat and how can I reduce my food intake today, and how many miles do I have to walk and what can I burn. It was just constant in my head all the time. So to get rid of that, to me, has just been worth it. And because it stopped, right? I'm not continuing to go, oh, and for reference, I'm quite a bit shorter than you. So I'm like 5'6". you know.
Two
But
inches. I've shrunk to 5'9",
yeah,
so
okay. Yeah, yeah.
all the surgeries.
Yes. So I've had surgeries too, and I think I would have avoided them. I had 3 hernia surgeries because I had the first hernia surgery. Well, let me back up. Because I starved myself, I really think that I have very low quality. Like, I think all my fascia and all that is just like low quality. So I had the hernia like right above the belly button, and it was after having the kids. So I think like my belly expanding, and then my muscles just went, nope.
Mhm.
It wasn't very big, but this little hernia popped through, and it was painful. And my doctor was like, oh, it was so small, but it hurt. And the doctor was like, if it was a hernia, it wouldn't hurt. You probably just need some antacids. It's probably just gas. And I was like, I know my body, like, this is a hernia. And so she's sent me in for a CT scan. The CT scan was because they didn't want to just, they had to like prove that it was a hernia. Well,
Yep.
the CT scan didn't prove it either because it was so small. But it did show something. They're like, it could be a hernia, it could be a tumor, which that's a scary word to hear. But this was all before carnivore, right? This was all before any of this, before keto. Like, this was just me being me, 12, 15 years ago. And so they're like, so since it might be those things, we'll go ahead and do a surgery and we'll tell you what it is when we get in there. So it was technically not a hernia surgery. It ended up being a hernia surgery, but it was exploratory surgery. And then it's like, if we find a hernia, we'll fix it. If we find a tumor, I don't know, whatever. I don't even know what they were going to do. And so, yes, I was right. It was a little tiny hernia. And the reason is the hole was so small that the little bit of fat came through the hole and then kind of spread out and couldn't go back in.
So it was painful.
It was painful. So a lot of hernias, people get them and they'll pop out and pop it. And mine couldn't pop back in. And so, yes, so it hurt. So they just like sliced off the fat, but they did not do it laparoscopically. So even though the incision was quite small, because it was exploratory, that's why they didn't do it laparoscopically, I think. The hole was quite small, and honestly, it's been so long, I can't remember the measurements. However, there is data to say if you have an incision bigger than a certain amount of millimeters or whatever, that incision, not just from hernia surgery, but from any surgery, that incision is more likely to cause another hernia because now that area is weakened. Well, my incision was like very small, but like a few millimeters past that limit. So sure enough, a year later, what happens? I get another hernia in the same spot, just maybe like a quarter of an inch higher up because it just damaged that area. So then they went back in laparoscopically this time. So the incision was much smaller, and fixed everything. But oh my gosh, to have to go through all of that and the CAT scan with like all of the contrast dye and all that stuff, which I didn't know any better because that was my stage of, okay, doctor, if you say so, you say I need this thing, I'm going to go do it.
Well,
It could
and a
have been
lot of it's
fixed right
because
the
of
first time.
insurance. Insurance
Yes.
would not approve my surgery until I did the ultrasound first, then the CT scan, and same thing happened to me. I went to my doctor. Every time I bumped up against my kitchen counter, I was like, ow. I'm like, what is that about? And I could feel a lump. And I told her, I said, my first words to her, could this be a hernia? Oh, no, I don't feel anything. It's not a hernia. I'm like,
Yep.
And so she sent me, she's like, you're having hip pain. And I'm like, no, I've had 3 hip surgeries. I'm pretty sure I'm the leading expert in hip pain. And this is not hip pain. This is like groin pain. And so she sent me back to my hip surgeon and she's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, she's like, this is not hip pain. I'm like, I know, my doctor sent me back to you. And then come to find out, full circle, it ended up being a hernia. And oddly enough, my surgeon was a bariatric surgeon. So I told him, I said, look, I like you, but you better not put a lap band on me.
While you're in there, let's stay focused.
Yeah. Yes. And then I was like looking around at all these weight loss products they're selling. And it's ridiculous what the weight loss clinics, they're giving shakes, bars, all with carbs and sugar in them. I'm like, nobody's ever going to heal from this crap, but I'll let you do my hernia surgery, So it was just weird going to a weight loss clinic for hernia surgery, but those guys do abdominal surgery. So that's what they do.
Yeah. Okay, so we're about to have some more chick talk. I put that banner up earlier when you were talking about your hysterectomy.
Yes.
So I also had a partial hysterectomy, but Amy, it was not for the same reason as you. It was for the same reason that I got the hernia. It's because everything inside, all my fascia is so weak that my uterus was falling out.
Wow.
And this was before. So now they have a surgery that a friend of mine just had where they'll hoist everything back up and kind of stitch it in place. But at least where I live, I think in other like more affluent areas of California at the time they were doing that surgery, but I didn't know about it. And there was none of those doctors near me at all. Because had I known, I probably would have, well, I definitely would have gone for that option instead of cutting out a whole organ, right?
Yeah. It
um,
was rough.
but it was miserable. And this happened to me during the 2020 thing that you were talking about. And so what happened was I started to feel very uncomfortable and like I was sitting on a bubble all the time and like something was constantly like pressing and it was very uncomfortable. Sorry guys again for the chick talk. I mean, it was very uncomfortable. But then because we didn't have any of those kind of doctors, it required two different doctors. It required that I see like a gynecologist and a urologist because they have to like team up. But then getting in was nearly impossible because of 2020 reasons. And so it took a year of me feeling that way. The first doctor I went to wanted me to just wear a pessary and just kind of push everything back up. And that was awful. And I was like, nope, not doing this. So I went for a second opinion and then we started heading in the direction of surgery. But that she was super surprised because it's called a prolapse. And it has a number, right? A 1 is like barely there. Like most women who have had a kid or like at a 1 because of just everything you go through when you have a kid, right? Then there's a 2 where it drops a little lower. A 3 is where everything's kind of even right at the opening there. And then a 4 is like literally it's outside of your body. And so I went from a 1 to a 3 in like a month. Well, no wonder I was in all this pain. It usually doesn't take a month, right? It's like over years, that will happen. And then like an elderly woman in her 70s and 80s might go to like a 3 or a 4. Well, here I am. And like, I start feeling these symptoms and within a month I'm at a 3 and I'm like, so at that point you can imagine, again, this was 2020. This was before keto, carnivore, health, whatever. I was just like, feels terrible. I'm miserable every day. Of course, defying the odds once again and not in a good way because they say like, well, when you're laying on your back, the symptoms should relieve because you're like taking the pressure off. No. So I couldn't sleep. Like I felt miserable all the time. So I was so actually happy when the surgery finally came a year later. And in 2021 is when I had my partial hysterectomy. And at least up to this time, although I wish that I had not had that done, now that I know there's that alternate surgery, again, you don't know what you don't know, but it has helped in terms of that. Like I'm so glad to be rid of that awful symptom and that feeling because it was very hard to live that way.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I did it, but I have a theory because I've been talking to a lot of women who have had partial hysterectomies where they leave their ovaries. And every single one that I've talked to within 2 years, they're in menopause. There's one girl who's 35 that I've spoke to, and she isn't even 40 yet, and she's having hot flashes and symptoms. There's another girl that I talked to who's 40. She had a partial hysterectomy, and she is now having hot flashes and menopause symptoms. So even though they leave your ovaries, my theory, and this is not medical advice, this is just a theory, opinion from talking to women, that within a couple years, 2 or 3 years, your ovaries will start to shut down and no longer make the sex hormones. And again, this is just a theory. It's not, anything that's been proven or anything. But so have you, after we both had our hysterectomies in 2021, oddly enough, did you start to have within a few years like the menopause symptoms?
No, actually I've had the only menopause symptoms I've had other than who knows how much of like if I have some exhaustion, right? Is that like because menopause symptoms or is that because of my thyroid, which I know I've had issues? So it's like, I don't really know because I'm not having that monthly reminder to tell me like how my hormones are. However, the newest symptom that I didn't get until late age 49. So, I mean, we're talking 5 years after my surgery. And that's kind of more the normal age range too, like 49, 50. I've had a few hot flashes here and there.
Yeah.
And
I
not
get
like
them in the
I've
summer.
seen women like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm having a hot flash. Like I just kind of feel my face kind of get a little hot, and then I'm like, I think I'm having a hot flash. It's nothing that feels unmanageable or anything like that. And definitely
I
when I
was
go high fat, I feel better.
Me too. I was having like
Mm.
100 a day. Like
No,
it
yeah,
was
no.
every couple minutes I was having one. I'm like, I can't live like
Mm.
this, but whatever. And then I went high fat, and now maybe I have a couple a day. Like sometimes when I'm laying in bed, even in the middle of a blizzard, I'm like, oh, I need to toss my covers off for a minute, but I'm sleeping through the night. I'm sleeping so much better.
Yeah.
And so we talk about testing. When you have a hysterectomy, you have no idea what your cycle is. At least I don't.
No, I
And
don't.
so my doctor, when I went back to him, he's like, we should test your hormones. I'm like, that's all well and great, but everything I've read is you have to be in a certain part of your cycle to know when to test. And I can't tell you when that is. And I'm not going to take my temperature 5 times a day to figure that out. I don't have time for that. He's like, it's okay. We're going to test you anyway, because I probably will be able to tell if you're in menopause. And so we tested, and my estrogen level was so low that I am in full blown menopause, which might explain why the hot flashes are getting better too, because
Mm.
maybe the last year or so was going through that, and maybe I'm beyond it at 50, which I still think is early. I think 50 is a few years early than the average, right? So, but that brings into another topic that might be a little controversial, but I want to bring it up
Okay.
because everyone talks about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And everyone says it's the greatest thing on earth. But and there was a study in, I think, the early, I want to say mid 90s, early 2000s, that really said, no, this is dangerous. We shouldn't do that. And now they're kind of walking that back a little bit and saying, no, women die of heart disease, and hormone replacement therapy helps heart disease and things like that. But I have such a high incidence of breast cancer in my family. My sister had breast cancer, estrogen dominant breast cancer. My two cousins have had breast cancer. On my mom's side, the BRCA gene is floating around. There's a lot of people on that side. My cousin, who's a male, just passed away at like age 52 or 53 of stomach cancer. And so it's a big deal. Cancer's a big deal in my family, especially breast cancer. I'm currently waiting for results of the BRCA gene, but my thing is, okay, even though they're walking back these studies and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy is positive for a lot of women, I haven't seen a study, and no one can provide me with a study that says for women who have breast cancer or who are high risk of breast cancer, especially estrogen dominant breast cancer, that it's not going to feed that cancer. If you get cancer, I don't think it causes cancer, but let's say you get cancer for whatever reason, for being exposed to plastics, for being exposed to harmful chemicals. um I just don't have a good feeling that there are enough studies out there to say that putting hormones inside your body isn't going to feed that necessarily. And every doctor I talk to who is my doctor says, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. So I'm a little, I don't know, cautious about that. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. And if you are having symptoms that are so miserable, that might be worth any risk there is, right? That might be worth it. My symptoms are getting better. So I don't know why if they get worse and I can't sleep and I'm just miserable, maybe I would consider it. Maybe I'm like, this would be worth the risk to me. But every breast cancer patient that I've talked to, and there's like Lainey, George Goodenough's wife, my sister, they're like, don't do it. Don't go on. Don't put any hormones in your. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'm open to consideration, but
Yeah, so I'm having that same internal debate, although probably not as heavily with the cancer word, just
yeah.
because I don't know, that's not necessarily the reason behind it for me. My grandmother and my grandfather on my mom's side both had cancer. My grandmother didn't die of that, like she had cancer treatments and that's not what got her in the end.
Right.
My grandfather was prostate cancer that then went, spread throughout his body, and that is what he died of. But I don't know. I just don't feel like, for whatever, I don't know why. I mean, maybe this isn't logical. I don't feel like I'm at a super high risk. Like, there's no breast cancer. There's none of that at all on my dad's side, like literally none on my dad's side of the family. However, so the bioidenticals are a lot different from the chemical,
Synthetic.
the synthetic. There you go. That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. But I know that when I was in my 20s and was getting married and I went on the birth control pill, because again, I didn't know any better, you guys, whatever the doctor said, right?
Yep.
Back then.
Yep.
And so I did that for years. Not a lot of years, but a few years, more than a year. Okay. And I tried many different ones because I would never, like, you take the 3 weeks and then you have the one that's like the placebo, and that's when
Yep.
your period is supposed to be. My period was never then. Like, I always had these weird breakthrough, and I'm like, is this thing even working? Is this thing on? Like, what is even happening? And then I got
on
that
switch.
yes. And then I got that like mustache looking dark skin above my lip. And that's when I was like, I'm out. This is gross. No, I'm in my 20s. I don't need to be having it wasn't hair, but like your skin turns darker
Yes.
and it looks like a mustache.
I have a spot over here from that.
Yeah.
That
So I
never
was
went
like,
away.
no,
That
thank you.
it
No, thank
changes
you.
your pigmentation.
Yes. And it did go away, thankfully, when I stopped. But I mean, I tried more. I couldn't even tell you because it was in my 20s, right? It's been 30 years, but multiple different brands, right? To try to get the different little, whatever the micro differences are, whatever, between the different hormone balances. And yeah, nothing ever worked for me. And then I've known other people to do like the bioidenticals, and it seems like then their life, this is my opinion. If it's helping you and you want to do it, I have nothing against it. Good for you. More power to you. Awesome. But what I see, because I did join a group on Facebook for like women our age, trying bioidenticals just so they can talk to each other. And I just kind of wanted to see, okay, these people that are trying it, like, what's their experience? And a lot of their experience is constantly having to tweak their dose. Like, I'm doing this, and then now this happens, so now I'm going to up this, and now that happens, so now I'm going to make this lower, and now this happens, so maybe I'm going to add. And I'm like, that's just way too much. Like, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
Me personally, right? Me personally.
Yeah, me
So
too. And yeah.
that's why and then I wonder, right? Like, I know that those the study has kind of been debunked, and they say it's like the worst thing that ever happened for women, because it kind of made a bunch of women that maybe wanted to make that choice, like all the doctors stopped prescribing it because of that, so they couldn't even make that choice if they wanted to, which I don't like. Like, I think if people want to make that choice, they should be able to do it. And so like the women like my mom's age, probably your mom's age, like that whole generation of women lost out on an option, that maybe that would have worked for them. So that part is sad. But for me personally, I don't think I'm going to do it. But I do have this debate, because you hear doctors like online, again, I'm not going to name any names because whatever, but you hear them say like, oh, you like what you said for the heart, and then also for the brain. Like, if you don't do bioidentical hormone replacement, your brain is not going to work as well once you're in full menopause, things like that. And maybe that's true. I don't know. But unless I have those symptoms where I get super brain foggy or something and I just can't function, then I'm not going to do it. A few mild, like you're talking about 2 hot flashes a day. I have 2 a week. And it's like, oh, I feel like my face is hot, and then it goes away. And then it's not like debilitating in any kind of way. And so at this,
it's debilitating either. Like,
yeah.
I mean, so it's getting so much better.
Yeah. At this point, I don't think I'm going to do it, but anybody that wants to do it, I know it's helped a lot of people. I have friends that are on it. But
I do too.
Yeah,
and I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know. I just, with the cancer in my family, I'm just like, I'm not so sure. Okay, so there are some people out there saying it protects against cancer, but these are the same people that are selling the bioidentical hormones and selling services for bioidentical hormones. So I'm like, and even my doctor that I currently have sells bioidentical hormones. He is a bioidentical hormone specialist. So you would think he would be pushing me to be on it, right? But he's saying, no, with your history, I just don't feel comfortable putting you on it. And if you're able to manage things,
So Evelyn is saying, I had no hot flashes or any trouble transitioning into menopause. I was fully keto about a year, and my monthly visitor just stopped coming. I've heard that story too. Like, my mom even wasn't keto, and I was like, hey, like, what was your menopause experience like? And she's like, I really don't remember. And then I'm like, then nothing happened. Like then your monthly visitor, just because you would remember, right? If you experience these, she's like, I don't
My
really
mom
remember.
had zero
You know?
symptoms too.
Yeah,
It must
yeah,
skip
yeah.
a generation. It must skip a generation.
Yeah, yeah. And then I wanted to address this comment. Sorry, I'm going to have to scroll up and find it. Okay, so Comic Jester says, doesn't carnivore combined with autophagy induced fasting halt all cancers? So I'm not going to go from, and I am not an expert. This is not medical advice. I'm an elementary school teacher, okay? I've just watched a lot of YouTube. So this is just kind of from what I've seen. So Thomas Seyfried, who has put forward like the metabolic approach to cancer, the metabolic reasons behind cancer and all this kind of stuff. For sure, a carnivore or high-fat keto diet is going to slow down the growth of many cancers. But even he doesn't say all cancers, but many cancers, and a lot of them are like the big cancers, like you're talking about breast cancer, like the ones that a lot of people get, right? But cancer, from what I understand, can have two fuels, and only one of those fuels is glucose, which is what the carnivore diet or keto diet and autophagy is going to help, because
Glutamine.
the other one is glutamine, and you cannot get rid of glutamine from your diet because everything has glutamine in it. That's going to require some other strategies, which this is not a show about cancer, so I'm not going to get into. But I think that it probably, again, I'm an elementary school teacher, no medical training, and this is not medical advice. For sure, I think that it would reduce, in my opinion, it would reduce the likelihood, because you're not putting any glucose in there. So, and the autophagy, right? So your body's hopefully going to go in and eat all those little, rogue renegade cells that are flying around in there. I do think it could help. But
and think about this.
There's another fuel.
One of my best friends is the manager of a radiology department at the local cancer center here. And think about this. What do they inject into you before they give you a PET scan for cancer? They inject sugar water. Why? Because the sugar that carries the dye, and it goes to the, the cancer cells gobble that up, and then it lights up on a PET scan.
Yes.
And she's like, if you think, and what do they give cancer patients? Like, what do they recommend giving cancer patients when they're going? They give them orange juice, they give them cookies. And I'm like, that is like in my opinion, and this is just opinion, the worst thing that they could be giving cancer patients while they're going through chemo. And you mentioned one of my favorite people, Dr. Thomas Seyfried. And because I'm so cancer is so much on my radar, I have paid so much attention to his studies and his works, and I listen to him every chance I get. And there's such amazing stories. There's Dennis. His name is Dennis, and he is in Canada, and he was about ready to die. He was days away from dying, and he had a carotid tumor. I can't think of his last name, but if you Google Dennis and then Dr. Thomas Seyfried, you'll get his story. It's incredible, and he's in remission now. And then the Pablo, can't think of his name, but he lived 10 years.
Pablo Kelly.
He lived 10 years with glioblastoma, and the cancer didn't kill him. One of the surgeries he had to reduce the brain cancer. And he was given 6 months to live, and he lived 10 years. So there's some amazing, and I'm telling you, and this is just my opinion, it's not medical advice, but if something ever happens and I do get cancer, I am enacting the Seyfried protocol immediately. I will probably go to another country and get some treatments, and I will do the hypobaric chamber oxygen and the press pulse protocol that he talks about. And again, this is not something I'm going to recommend anybody else do, but this is what I'm going to do, because all of the stories that have been out there that have done the press pulse protocol, there are a lot of amazing turnarounds for terminal. And what have you got to lose if you're terminal anyway? What do you got to lose? Yeah. So
agree. Okay. I want to talk about one more controversial topic with you, because why not? We've already thrown out a few of those. Why not? Let's talk about cholesterol, Rockin Coach Amy.
Oh, yes.
What can you tell? I just interviewed Dave Feldman. So if you haven't seen my interview with Dave Feldman, when this live stream is over, it was recent. Go look on my live tab. We chatted for an hour. It was great, in my opinion. It was a great chat. I really enjoyed talking with him. So he is the guy doing the lean mass hyperresponder thing with the CT angiogram study. His documentary Cholesterol Code is out now, coming to Amazon, I think April 17th or 16th, something like that. And I just went to his conference in Las Vegas, and all of this because I am a lean mass hyper responder. But take it away, Coach Amy. What do you have to say about
Okay.
that?
So when I was protein sparing modified fasting, I got my cholesterol down into what they consider range. I forget what it was exactly, but my previous doctor laid off, right? But we all know what happened to me because I just told you I wasn't feeling the best. My energy was low. I felt like I was paralyzed. And that's when I decided to go on a high fat carnivore from a low fat ish ketovore, right? And things started happening. My brain started feeling better. I have like all of my labs have come back. My C-reactive protein is great. That's a marker for inflammation and heart disease. I'm getting ready to get a CAC score done. I predict I will have 0 or very low uh like CAC score because I have not had diabetes. I have not had any of the other metabolic disease. I had high blood pressure for a few years. That is gone. But my doctor, my new doctor, so I think my total cholesterol was like 350 and the LDL was like up close to 200. Now my triglycerides are like 40 something. My triglycerides are extremely low and my HDL is like 95. The good cholesterol is like out of range. I mean, like that's ridiculously high, right? So, and my doctor, he already prescribed me a statin. And I went to CVS to pick up an allergy pill because really the only thing I need is allergy medication because I live with 4 cats, right? So that's the only medication I'm on to help me with that. He, without talking to me, already prescribed a statin. I went into CVS. I'm like, nope, you can return that to the shelf. I'm not picking that up. And the technician had this look on his face like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, me and my doctor are gonna have a discussion about that." And one of my favorite books, if you have not read this book, The Great Cholesterol Myth by Steven Sinatra and Johnny Bowden. This is one of the first books I read 8 years ago, and it changed my mind about cholesterol. I also have my own little paperwork that I just devised called Amy's lipid model, explaining to the doctor that what a lean mass hyperresponder is and that I fit that profile. And I also had one of the labs that I had done was the particle size. I think it's called the advanced lipid model.
Yes.
And
Advanced lipid panel. Yes.
yes, it explains that I am a LDL pattern A, which
Me
is
too.
large buoyant LDL, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through my results and it's going to explain it to him why I do not believe I need to be on a statin. I also have several other studies here. New analysis shows statins have minimal benefits. That and again, this is not medical advice. This is information you can research yourself and you can print out for your doctor. Statins in subjects with early mild cognitive impairment linked to dementia. That's another study that I have. And the one that Dr. Berry likes to present, which is the low density lipoprotein reduction and relative versus absolute effects of statins.
Yes.
I have like a lean mass hyper responder document. There's like 300 pages here along with this book. And my strategy is going to be okay, I have politely refused your statins based on my lipid panel profile. I want you to read all of this information. And before I will talk to you about a statin again, you will see once you read this information why I have my current view on not taking a statin. And I am so excited for that video to come out. I tried to schedule a showing of it here, but they wanted like $1,700 to
Oh,
be
I tried to schedule
upfront.
a showing of it here, and like I picked a theater because there's a website where you could like schedule a
Yep.
showing if you don't know what we're talking about. There was 2 theaters right around me, and I was like, cool. Neither one of them would pop up a date. Like a date, you go to this calendar and then you're supposed to be able to pick your date. Like it was all grayed out. And I was like, I think
Yeah,
there's a
well,
glitch. I don't know. So
I had
but I
one.
am gonna definitely get it on Amazon when it comes out and probably invite some people over.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll probably
Yeah.
do that too. Yeah. So They
if
wanted
you do,
$1,700 up front.
if you do, if anyone out there does rent, because it won't be like free with Amazon Prime. Like you'll have to rent the cholesterol code documentary. So Dave Feldman just asked if anybody does do that, please drop a review, because every review he gets, like that helps to push it out there where it may get more traction and actually end up on Prime and all this kind of stuff where more people would see it. So that's just a little tidbit from my interview with Dave. He's like, hey, please tell your people, like whoever you're talking to, if you do it, please just drop a review, because that really will help. So
I wonder if you can gift that, because I'll gift that movie to my doctor as well.
That's a good idea. So I had a very similar story. Actually, the only thing that wasn't similar, Amy, is that I didn't really go to the doctor before, except when I had something like what I think we should, like when you have a hernia, no amount of carnivore is going to fix it. Like I think that is really what doctors are pretty good at, unless they gaslight you and tell you it's not a hernia. But otherwise, so I didn't ever have blood work. Like I just didn't do it. So I don't know what my cholesterol was. Like literally never had blood work my whole life, except for the pre-surgery blood work. But they didn't test cholesterol, right? They were just testing, is she going to survive surgery? Like whatever those things are. Yeah. And I never even looked at it, because they did it and then like, yep, you'll live. And here we go. So I don't know what my cholesterol was prior, but this all happened to me because I had my standard American doctor, right? And I had been her patient for years, not even going in every year, going in every few years when I had a problem that I was like, I thought that I might need some kind of medical intervention for, but never blood work or anything. Anyways, so I'm like, I'm going to show her what a proper human diet, maybe I'll convert this doctor, like in my brain, right? That's what I'm thinking. So I request this blood work, right? Which she does. She refused to run a fasting insulin, however, because I asked for a few things. There were some things she flat out refused to do. Why do you need that? You're not overweight. Like she was pushing back on a lot of things. But whatever. I was like, I got what I could get. But one of the things I got was at that point was before I had started gaining the carnivore weight that we talked about. I had been keto and I had been carnivore for a little while. So I was 20 pounds leaner than I am now. And honestly, it's been a couple of years, but my cholesterol was over 400. Like more like I don't mean 401. I mean like mid 400s. I don't know. Remember the exact number. Yeah. And then again, same thing. It was definitely, the HDL was way up there. And then the triglycerides were way down. And I just went, because my doctor was like, I told you, because we had this whole conversation and she was like, I don't think you should be on this diet. This was before the blood work. I don't think you should be on this diet. Everyone, I've only had a couple of patients ever try it, but like whenever I see people doing this, their cholesterol goes up. Like that was her main concern, right? So here I come. She's definitely never heard of lean mass hyperresponder before. So she just sees this LDL and she lost her mind. And she was like, she didn't yell at me, but she was like, you need to either go on a statin. I will give her credit. She said, you either need to change your diet. So she said diet first. But if you don't want to change your diet, then you need to go on a statin. And I said, no, thank you. But I'm feeling some thyroid symptoms. I wanted to get these things checked. And she was like, she would refuse to do any further other medical things for me until I addressed my cholesterol.
Nope.
For whatever the method was that was my choice, right? Like I could change my diet and start eating whatever she thought would do it, right? Which she didn't really have any good advice. I said, well, what kind of diet do you think? I wasn't going to do it. I just wanted to know what she was going to say. What kind of diet, and she was like, well, and she didn't really know what to say when I asked her that. It was kind of funny. But anyway, she refused to do any thyroid testing or like anything else until I did that. And so that's when I just fired her. And then my new doctor, now 2 years in doctor, she eats a keto diet, and any vegetables that she does eat, she grows in her own backyard. So she's not a metabolic health practitioner. I know more than her about like, these certain blood tests and things like that, but she'll listen to me and she's open to it. And she's like, not afraid of my cholesterol or telling me I better take a statin. Like probably if I asked for one, she'd give it to me. Anything. I'm not gonna, but I'm just saying like, she's open to it being a partnership. In her office, she has like one of the posters that are always in doctors' offices, and they're usually like a drug commercial or whatever. Yes. Hers is talking about eat real food. Like here, these food, like here's your prescription, and then it lists food. And I counted them. I should have taken a picture, like for my YouTube channel, to show you guys literally 8 out of 10 foods ish on that list were like animal based foods. And then talking about like eggs give you this, and you know what I mean? Instead of like,
That's
here's
so
a drug that
cool.
you can do. It's pretty cool. So she is open to learning. I'm going to consider asking her, suggesting to her that she might go to the, it used to be like Low Carb USA. Now it's like metabolic, I don't know, something, but it's the conference in San Diego. Cause we're right near there. And I think
It's just there.
I'm like,
I was just in
doctor,
San Diego.
yeah. Well, next time you're in San Diego, shoot me a message because we'll
I
get
will.
together. I live like an hour from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this has been awesome, Amy. I feel like I had a list because we talked before, and I'm like, I think we only did half of them. So
That's
I
okay.
think we need to have
We'll
a
do it
part 2
again.
because I have immensely enjoyed this conversation this morning.
Me too. And I knew we were gonna hit it off. So I really appreciate you having me on and getting up so early because it was like 7 there. It's only like 11 here, so it's like
So
8 there now.
we still have quite a few people watching. So I want to let you guys know, at least for the next 4 weeks, this is going to be a regular time slot for me. So I do have interviews scheduled for every Saturday at 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 a.m. Eastern time if you're over there. So you guys come back next week. In the next few weeks, I've got some really interesting guests scheduled to talk. And then Amy, we need to schedule another one of these so we can get to all these other controversial topics.
Yes. I love it. Love it. Let's tackle the hard stuff. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye, everybody.